It's wonderful to see so many people here in the hall for our speaker. It's a great privilege to have Caroline with us again. She's been coming here regularly for over 3 decades, and we're so grateful that she travels all the way from the States to share her wisdom with us. So this weekend we're going to learn about guts and God. Let's give Caroline a warm welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, John. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to be here. 3 decades, huh? Are you sure? 3.5 decades. 3.5 decades. You didn't add that I look better every time. We'll speak about that later. Doesn't time go fast? 3.5. Some of you were probably in diapers when I started. I'm not interested in you. I'm only interested in those who are older than me, and that gets lesser money. Okay. We were having lunch, breakfast today, and Joyce, one of my dear, dear forever friends, passed this remark about, I forget how she said it, but she said, well, that was last century. And David, my forever friend, business partner, said, what? And I said, all your kids were born last century. But that phrase, right? And that was only 17 years ago, but that phrase, and it's true, right? I mean, wow, last century. That's enough of that. Okay. That's enough of being, oh wow, my turn. This subject, grace and God, is something that probably I wouldn't have taught too much last century. But times have changed, and we live in extraordinary times. But it's why they are extraordinary that I have to talk about, first of all and foremost. What makes this time so extraordinary? And it's in understanding that should be our entry into this topic. Why is studying God and guts so important? And why would that be a subject? Because there was a time not so long ago where this kind of study would not even be a subject for mainstream at all. And the way we're going to approach it would not even be something under consideration. And the whole paradigm that all of the major religions are colliding in the cosmos would not even be, people wouldn't even be able to conceive that. Wouldn't even be able to, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? But in fact, it's that phenomenon taking place that makes this moment in history the moment that it is. And it's those threads from that very mythic experience. And a myth, to be clear, is a story, a cosmic story that contains a God thread. And it is such an important thing to understand that the cosmic stories run who we are. They control who we are. They influence who I am. That the world is being reshaped right now because those stories are getting de-animated. The lights are getting turned off in all the major myths that human beings have believed for 3,000 years. Now, that is so incomprehensible that you really can't, our brains are not big enough to really get that. So we have to chop it up in tiny pieces. Because even the tiniest one of our actions is controlled by what I just told you. That the lights are going out on the stories of our religions, even down to Christmas Day. So if I have to put it in a small package under your tree, I'll do it. But that's what's happening in our world. And it's causing the tensions in the Middle East. It's causing the fires in the world. That the threads and dominoes that we see all around us, and the awakenings happening within us, begin by the myths that are changing in the cosmos. The primary one was exploded in the heavens in 1945, when a power bomb was let loose, bigger than anything we'd ever seen. That suddenly we entered into an era of self-destruction that was greater than anything we'd ever seen. We outdid ourselves. And it wasn't an American thing. It was all humanity collectively agreed at some unconscious level to become collectively so destructive that we put our lives at risk. And I want to explain what that did to all of us, because you have to get this in your blood and in your bones. Because the end product is how we decided to write the book about God. The two wheels that have always determined, formed who we are and what we are. One wheel is our need to create. Human beings have always had a need to faddle, create. This. What's this? What's that? It's the first thing a baby does when it can move. What's this? Do I eat this? Do I put it here? Do I put it here? What do I do with this? And the second is our fundamental need to survive. These are our two primal needs: create, survive. How do I survive? What do I create? Create, survive, create, survive. And these two wheels have always run kind of equally. Left and right leg, left and right arm, just need create and survive. For the first time ever in the history of us as a species, for the first time ever in the history of who we are and what we are as a species, when we created a weapon that could destroy us, the whole of us, our ecosystem, our everything, we threw this relationship off because we finally created something that we couldn't survive. Nothing else we could create could help us survive. Nothing. There was nothing we could create that could offset the destructive power of what we had just created. Now, to put this in a mythic, we had become Prometheus, who stole the fire again. Only this time, when Pandora came with a new box of suffering, and we opened it up, there had to be hope in there. But what was the new hope? The new hope for humanity lay in the kind of evolution that we needed, a path of evolution that we needed to take to be able to find, to forge a new way of surviving that was equal to the force of nuclear destruction. We needed to carve a new way of being us, a nuclear soul that was equal in transformational power, that was equal to the destructive power on the outside, was the transformative power on the inside. That was the way through this. That marches and all of that for whatever were temporary fixes. Now, if I could equal this to draw a parallel in my career as a medical intuitive and all that I've learned about illness in 35 years, it's the difference, it's what I've learned when someone becomes seriously ill. And all of these many, many years that I've watched people tackle illnesses, and I've watched the journey from the beginning of, in my own career, when I first started, which was back in the 80s. And in that time, I didn't know anything about anything. I was trained as a journalist, for God's sake, right? So and that was to my benefit, because I did not come in with a head full of assumptions and a head full of trained medical knowledge. I was a blank slate. And I never even heard of chakras and this and that and this and that. So when I started to read the human energy system, I had to go on what my intuition said, because I was always a clear intuitive. And what I did know about myself was I knew myself. And I always knew my perceptions were accurate. I always knew the world behind my eye was absolutely clear. I always had this sense that I never did what I've heard other people. I thought I was crazy. Da, da, da. I always knew I was sane, and I thought you were crazy. And I always wondered how anybody got through life without trusting themselves. So that's the world I grew up in. So when I started to do readings, it was at a time when people talked like this. Could we open a door here for air? They didn't talk like that. That's a pause. Okay. So people would say it was during that era where cancer, serious illness, was framed within, I know I created this through negativity. So it was the idea that attitudes were power. Thoughts were things. We were discovering the mind. Now, though the mind-body-spirit template had been kind of carved out, the mind was winning over the spirit, and that is something I want you to notice. The spirit was somewhere else, but the focus was on the mind. The mind was the part of the mind-body-spirit that was the focus. We could work with the mind, but what was this thing called the spirit? We weren't sure. We weren't sure at all. So the spirit got into, and how the spirit was looked at was, I'll take care of my own spirit, thank you very much. This was independent. Now we're going to examine that, because we are also the first generations that ever went into the risky territory of spirit on our own. All previous generations prior to the nuclear age worshipped in community. We don't use the word worship anymore. That word has been de-animated. We never use that word. We rarely use the word conscience. It's been substituted by this ridiculous word consciousness. That means whatever you want. I'm practicing conscious. What the hell does that mean? It means I recycle. It means I take omega-3 oil. It means whatever you want, but it doesn't hold you responsible for anything. You get to tell people, mind your own business. I'm conscious. It means you're doing therapy. It means you are indulging yourself. But it doesn't mean anything when it comes to examining the nature of good and evil. It doesn't mean anything when it comes to saying, I need to reflect on the quality of choices I make every day and the consequences they have on the lives of other people. And what motivates me to do what I do. Since I see how much power I actually have, what am I doing in this world? What am I creating? What is my soul doing? Since I believe that what is one in the whole, what is in one is in the whole in my body, what am I doing with that law in the whole of the world? How do I hold myself accountable for my action in the collective soul of humanity? Because that is my spiritual path. That is the path of the soul. That is how one practices theology. That is how one moves toward a conscious spiritual life. When I'm looking at back to the 80s and I'm watching people pursue their healing, the first way they defined responsibility from my observational position was to stand up and announce that they took responsibility for creating their illness. I watched people applaud when they said that. Good for you. But what did that mean? And they tended to mean it in a punitive way. Like, I acknowledge I had negative thoughts. Negative thoughts. There must be negativity. Then they went on a search and destroy mission. I have to find the negative thought, or the one negative experience that did this to me. So it was through the victim door they went. I have been victimized, and I must reconcile that. So victimizing they went. Now, mind you, none of this opened the door to how they dwelled in vengeance and the desire to get even. It was just how they were hurt. So this became therapy. Can any of you relate to this? Okay, so how many? I don't see any hands. Okay, put your hands up. Okay, now this was slowly dismantling your backbone. Instead of building a titanium backbone, a spine, it's weakening. By now, we should be so strong after 70 years. 70 years of self-empowerment work. 70 years. We're going on a century. We should be so able, so empowered. But we are more drugged, more medicated, more emotionally weakened, more delicate. We think every one of our emotions is significant. Are you kidding me? We think every one of our opinions needs to be heard. Seriously? Really? Really? We can't discern what's significant from what's not. Really? We can't, we think everything we do is so, you have to talk to me in a certain tone of voice. What tone? What tone is that? This or that? What tone is it exactly? Oh my, you can't use that tone. Right there. Right there, that's the tone. Right there. How? Because I decided yesterday afternoon that I can't bear to hear that tone. Why? Because I just did. I was watching and I saw the sunrise and I said, oh, that's it. That's the tone. I have to inform all my friends. B minor. Do not speak to me in B minor. It offends me. Really? Really? And that is the kind of personality that thinks you can take a disease on? Really? You can't take a tone on. You can't take a musical note on. Oh, I must have a boundary. Right there. Don't you cross that. Don't you dare. And with that tone, I shall follow. I will need therapy for 2 years. They crossed my boundary. Right there. And can you earn a living? I mean, with that personality, can you actually earn a living? Can you actually go out in the world and handle a problem? No. Am I describing anybody you know? And you think you can handle a cancer? Seriously? Really? Huh? Okay, so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh, Jesus. I watch couples that need therapy to say one honest word to each other. Why? They can't handle truth. I need a third person to be able to say one honest word. Because truth, don't say it to me, don't, because I'll fall apart. Truth, one word, blank my ears. You're so direct. Direct? Direct, you call me? Direct? It's called speaking probably truth. And it's called direct. My country's as crooked as a dog's hind leg. And we had to create a whole new archetype for speaking the truth called a whistleblower. That's how crooked, that's how askew the human psyche is now. And when you blow the whistle, you're arrested. It's considered illegal to tell the truth. That's how delicate we've become. That's how delicate we've become. Oh, please don't speak the truth. I'm so delicate, I don't want to talk to you again. Now, what do you think the spiritual path is? The spiritual path is about truth. It's about truth. It's not about therapy. It's not about healing. No, it is not. It is about truth. Truth. So as I continued on my work, and I thought, how come more people aren't healing? How come? What's going on here? And as my work continued, and I went into the higher altitudes and began to look not at what was wrong, but the complexity of us. And I got into archetypes. I got into the mythic level of us, the mythic. The stories we tell ourselves. The stories that have authority over us. That's when we really got interesting. That's when the world of behind our eye became absolutely intriguing to me. When we got into our cosmic self, that's when the relationship between heaven and earth became deliciously fascinating to me. Because that's when I realized that most people have no idea how powerful their myths are to them. They have no idea how powerful their saboteur is, or their victim, or my God, their child, or their judge, or their vampire, or their healer, or they don't know themselves. And if you don't know these stories that are talking to you all the time, if you don't know how you or why you see the world the way you do, you are so easily controlled by other people. And if you're easily controlled by other people, so is your health. So is your mind. So are your emotions. You are not an individual. You may tell yourself you are, but you're not. You're someone who's completely maneuvered. But you are someone who can be brought down by someone going like this. Boom, you're out cold. I'll get a letter from someone, how could you do that to me? I could have a tick. I could have a bad dental thing and it makes me go like this. But this is what you do. You take it personally. Because in your mind, you're the center of the universe. And you walk around thinking that everybody you look at is looking at you as the center of your universe. What are they thinking of me? They looked at me. Did you see that? Oh my God, I'm the center of the universe. I am. It's all about me. Everything's about me. It's all about me. See the way they look at me? They're looking at my clothes. They're looking at me. They're looking at my hair. They're thinking about me. That's how you walk around. When in fact, nobody cares about you. Let's get it straight. How many people on their deathbed are going to ask to see you? How about no one? Certainly no one in this room. I really want you to think about that. I want you to get your head on straight. Get your head on straight. I am not kidding. You are not important. I'm not here to tell you how important you are. I'm here to ordinary you up. Humble up. Humble up. It's going to be the greatest prayer you ever said. Humble me up, God. I got to put my feet on the ground again. I got to stop thinking my purpose in life is to be special. What was I thinking? I'm going to go put my head in the toilet for 7 minutes and reboot my life. We've developed a contempt for being ordinary. I know people, what do they name their kids? Sunshine, meditation, karma. For what? So that you sit back and say, wow. How many people tell me their kids are special? I tell you I can't stand it anymore. What the heck do you mean they're special? Not to me. Your kids are never going to be special to me. I don't want to see them if they're special. Get them out. Stop it. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. And you tell people that because you don't want anything ordinary to happen to them. You think it's like some kind of magic spell. They're special. Why? I don't want anything ordinary. Because, like what? Oh, illness, accident, that kind of thing. Well, who should that happen to? That person. Now, they're ordinary. I can spot them. How do you know? Because I'm judging them. That's why I judge others. I judge people because I can spot an ordinary. That one's a geek. That one's this. Look at how they dress. I judge people because I want to make sure that I'm projecting ordinary and can still spot ordinary. And I get them first because if I judge, they can't get me. You're going to get wise to yourself in this workshop. It's called spiritual bitch slapping. Okay? You're going to humble up, and that's a spiritual path. where you get over yourself and you come to understand two things about this universe. God is law, and you're held accountable. You are held accountable for you. You're held accountable for your judgments, and you're held accountable for the things you know are as they are. Heaven does not care about your nonsense, about your wounded past, about any of the excuses you use in therapy to hurt another person. You choose to hurt another person, it goes on your list. You want to hurt another person, you go right ahead. You want to use your childhood as an excuse, you go right ahead. But believe you me, you're accountable for that. And if you do it consciously, there's a word for it. It's called a sin. So we're going to play hardball, because that's the truth. That's what it's called, becoming conscious. When you know you are hurting another person and it's conscious, you're doing it deliberate. I don't care about your childhood. I don't care what the reason is, because the laws of your nature don't care. And this is what you have to understand. I'm not making up things. I learned this because your biology does not care. I'm coming at you through your biology. I'm coming at you through the laws of your disease. If you think your biology sits up and says, oh, well, I can't form a bad cell tissue because, well, she had a bad childhood, you're crazy. You will form an illness from your negativity regardless of what your childhood is like. This is cause and effect. This is law. This is how the universe operates. That's it. So either you get your act together or you get sick. Choice, bitter or better. And number two is the way you get through these rough times is called prayer. So it is very difficult. This is not a heartless universe. Nothing could be more intimate. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nothing is more intimate. And I can't explain the intimacy, but every single thing you do is watched over, not for punitive reasons, but out of extraordinary compassion. Extraordinary compassion. Extraordinary. So this universe is both totally impersonal, and that's where our archetypal stories come in. There's nothing personal about our archetypes. If you're a mother archetype of this or that, that's why the stories are universal. And if I spot an archetype in you, and you two have the same archetypal patterns, and there'll be dynamics that will come into your life that are absolutely identical. How you play them out is personal. But you will both have dynamics, like if you both have the wounded healer, you are going to get a wound. But the wound will be personal to who you are. If you take the wound personally, that's where you're mistaken. Am I making that clear? So you don't get to say, oh, I'm so wounded, and then go up to the person that wounded you and process it for 40 years. That's where you're mistaken. Because you then don't understand your own journey. You don't understand your own journey. You are mistaking the journey of your own life. And this is where I will say to you, you're taking your own journey personally, and that is a mistake. Because even the journey of your life is not personal. You cannot believe in reincarnation and take your own life personally. You can't have both. These two things collide with each other. Because there's nothing personal about a life that is a continuation of an ongoing story in which the pieces have to be as they are. If they have to be as they are, what's personal about it? It's an organized story that says, if I have a ticket to get to London, there's nothing I can do about it. So how can that be personal? Are you with me here? So, what? Well, if you are living, if you are already making choices, and those choices have consequences in motion, there's nothing you can do about those consequences. They are already in motion. If you go shopping and you run up a huge debt, right? Yeah. You're going to pay that debt. It's not personal. That's the way it is. We all have to pay our debts. Is that personal? The universe did not decide you're the only one to pay a debt, right? Okay, so in the next life, your next life is all about your debts. That's not personal, is it? No. So when the next life is set up, and maybe it's a worker life to pay off your debts, you can't take it personally. You overspent. Now, you may not remember that. So you come to a workshop and I say, oh, you have a debt life. So the wise thing is to say, this can't be all bad, because there's no such thing as an all bad life. There is no such thing. Heaven doesn't work that way. How come heaven doesn't work that way? Because heaven itself set it up to be subject to the law of balance. It can't work that way. It already made its own rules, and its own rules it must adhere to. So it must provide you. It has to provide you with blessings equal to the challenges. It has to. It's subject to its own laws. I'm not, by the way, reading you. I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah. But this, the challenges, is this equal to how you can look at the challenges? Like you said, so two people from archetypal things can have the same challenges, say.
Yeah.
But then
No, not the same. Same.
Similar,
Yeah.
But then it's how you look at them, how you choose to deal with them.
Right. It's how you choose to deal with them. That's the operative thing. Yeah. Like, for example, let me give you, how many of you are parents? Oh. All right, but everybody has a different experience of parenting and of children. Some may have 40 kids, and some may have 4, and some may have 1, okay? So everyone in here has a different experience of what it's like to be parents, and there may be one person who actually hates it, okay? Am I looking at one? Okay. But and that would be me. But and some people might have a wonderful child. Some people might have a child who just, they think, if I ever see that kid again. So, but how an experience actually plays out. But if you have an archetype, some form of that archetypal experience will be delivered to your life. And that's a given. That's a given. Because you have that pattern. I have the archetype of the teacher. And now I'm not kidding you. And I remember my dad saying when I was in high school, before college, before university, and he said to me, I don't care what you do in this life, so long as you are either a nurse or a teacher. And he said that because he wanted to make sure I could take care of myself. And back then, nursing and teaching were the two most prevalent occupations for women. And I said, I'll never teach, never so long as I live. The thought of it, because I the women in my family became grade school teachers, little kids. And I thought, I'd rather throw myself under a bus than teach children. But I'm so strongly a teacher that no matter what I did, I used to lecture cab drivers. I mean, I just, like, well, why do you want that? Because did you know, blah, 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 you know? So you are what you are. And it is there, you know, there it is. So you are destined. That's what I mean. Walls are in motion. And if I screwed it up, if I started to maneuver, manipulate, tell people they have to study with blah, 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 and start maneuvering and manipulating your mind in a dangerous way, believe you me, I'd create debts. Believe you me, I would. And somehow I would, those consequences would happen. And even if the light went on somewhere, and I thought, what have I done? What have I done? Become one of those dangerous gurus that does, there's some dangerous, horrible person that makes people do sweat lodges or something. And, but then I would have to pay somehow. I could not get off the hook for that. It's not enough to just wake up in your bed and say, what have I done? I think I'll change my ways. I've incurred a karma. And that has to be balanced somehow. Are you with me here? You just can't wake up by yourself and decide, I think I'll shift gears. I have done harm. And somehow that harm has to be balanced. And so when that balance comes, and I don't know how that balance will play out. And unfortunately, we don't know necessarily that this particular experience is balancing this one. We don't get a little card that says, hello. This experience comes from 1516. We don't know that. And that's where, you know, like the book of Job, where Yahweh says to Job, butt out of this. I gave order to this universe. This is mine. Well, I'm editing. And I love the book of Job. And he says, where were you when I created the foundations of this universe? Where were you when I hung the stars and the moon? I swear to God, God himself wrote the book of Job. It's so perfect. Where were you when I decided where the oceans begin and end? Where were you? And if you really want an experience, sit down and read the book of Job and put your name in there. You know, what's your name? Paula. And imagine that Yahweh was saying to you, where were you, Paula, when I hung the universe? I don't remember seeing you, but I created you. But where were you, Paula, when I ordered the planets and I put them, where were you? But still, I created you, Paula. And I know who you are among all of this. So what are you worried about? Read it and put your name in there. It takes your breath away. It takes your breath away. Read the book of Job and put your name in it. And just imagine God talking to you that way. It takes your breath away. It's the last time Yahweh spoke to a human being directly. He had nothing more to say. Does that help you out? Okay. So, continuing. What I learned, finally, was that the mind is useless when it comes to anything significant. Because it is how you create illusions. It is filled with stories. When it comes to healing, your mind needs most of the healing. Your mind has to be healed or your body doesn't do anything. Your mind is not your ally when it comes to healing. It needs so much work, it's unbelievable. The part of you that has the power is your soul. It's your soul. Your mind will trick you. It will tell you whatever you want to know. When I remember one of the thought forms that was introduced in the 70s or 80s, and it's become a kind of a surrogate creed, is that we create our own reality. Remember that little tidbit? And like all mystical teachings, we've taken it and twisted it into something self-serving. It is truth, that we have a profound influence over what we experience as reality. That is a mystical truth. It is not truth that we create reality. That is preposterous. Because I'll throw it out to you and ask you, how you doing with your reality? Is it everything you've ever wanted to create, I ask you? And what's your formula? No, you do not create reality. What you do create is a subjective interpretation of everything that you experience, which is why what I say and what you hear are two different things. Which is why I may say something, but what you hear me say is filtered through your experiences and your vocabulary, and how you interpret a word according to what you associate that word with, according to your personal history, which is why we're going to do a very interesting lecture on the power of words and the power of vocabulary. So you do have a profound influence on the maintenance of what you call reality, all the way down to how you experience your relationship to time itself. You create a relationship to time and to perception. And the way you create that has everything to do with how many anchors you have in your life. Again, this is something I realized when I was doing medical intuitive readings. And that the more anchors you have in your life, the more things you hold on to, the more, and I'll give you a very, very, very simple analogy. If you have a lot of stuff that you hold on to, a lot of stuff. If you have a house with a lot of stuff, it's going to take you a long time to move. If you live like my dear friend Penny, if you live with a minimal amount of stuff and you get a letter from God and it says, I need you here, she can pack up and be gone by evening. She doesn't have to think, oh no, what am I going to do with all my furniture and all my china, all my this, all my that? It's all so significant. No, it's not. It's just stuff. And these are just dishes. This is just rugs. But for me, what if I walked in there and I said, this isn't significant. This is a rug. This is a glass. This is a piece of silverware. But you see it through your reality. This was my mother's. This was this. So you project all kinds of stuff onto this that I don't. So in your reality, you have emotion. You have anchors. You've anchored experience into inanimate object. There's no experience in this knife. This is what Buddha calls illusion. Do you see an experience in this knife? Bang, bang, bang. Polly's dead. Okay, I can't make an experience come out of this knife. I'm banging. Where's that experience? Bang, 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 bang. It's not in here. I'm trying to get it out, but it's not. I can break the dish. Now what? Your mother's still not here. Do you see her coming in and smacking you? No. Okay, these are dishes. Do you still remember your mother? Even more. She's not in this dish and she's not in the knife. So somehow you have to extricate yourself from a plate, but in order to move you, it will take months, and it'll take me minutes, months and minutes. That's a ratio of speed. That's the same amount of speed it would take you to comprehend a truth. Take her minutes, take you months. Because you don't want to think that fast. There's something in your mechanism that says, I don't want to know things that fast. That's the same amount of speed. That's the difference between the rate at which someone like Penny would heal and the speed at which you would heal. This is actually how you create your relationship to time. Everybody finds anchors. Now, everybody has their different, now, some anchors are not stuff, but this is how people have stuff as anchors, and they have, what happened here? Wait. Hold it. Hold it. And they have stories as anchors. They have relationships as anchors. Here's an anchor relationship. I can't do that. He needs me. He needs you for what? If you were doing this, how would that change this? Why would that change this if you were doing this? I can't do this until, why? You are anchored in a story. And I've said to many people, why don't you just tell me you don't want to do this? And stop anchoring it this way. Stop it. Just tell me this, and let's go from there. And as one of the exercises, you are not allowed anymore to use another person's name in any of the reasons you give yourself for why you do the things you do. Nobody's name is ever allowed again, ever, in any of the reasons why you think the way you do what you do, you say what you do, ever. No more. When you talk about yourself to yourself or to anybody else, it's only you. It's only you and your soul on the hot seat. If you don't want to do something, it's not because of another person. It's because you don't want to do it. No more being a child. You are in your power or not. And you get to even say, I'm powerless. I don't want, I'm a coward. Own yourself. No more hiding around someone else. No more. This is called spiritual truth. No more. No more running backwards. No more hiding in your history. There is no more history. It doesn't exist. You have to say, this is it. I'm using a wound. I'm about to use a wound. I'm about to use a wound. I'm about to do it again. You don't get to do that. Instead of saying, I'm right here in the present, I'm comfortable in my discomfort, and I'm not ready to leave my discomfort. Are you with me? These are your new rules. So you get to stay where you are, but you can't use your history. You have to say, I'm in my present, and I have to own, I don't want to go. I'm comfortable on the couch, and I'm not going to use my history. I'm simply going to say, I like talking about moving, but the truth is, I'm not going anywhere. You're going to change it to the truth. For how many of you would have to do that? Oh, stop it. Okay. This is how you begin your path to spiritual congruence. This is it. You start actually with hardcore truth. This is spiritual direction. This is it. You start directing yourself. You stop talking as though you're promoting things that are simply not true in yourself. You stop allowing yourself to talk about things that are not true. There's no more of that. No more. You can't go there. Now, the reason, let me just talk about spiritual direction, because that is something I'm going to refer to constantly in this workshop. Spiritual direction is something I kind of fell into once I truly realized how powerful the soul is. Number one, soul. Your soul has no religion. So let us be very clear about something. When I speak of the soul, I am not talking about any part of us that has a religion. Religions are a thing of the past. They are evaporating. And the reason they're evaporating are not because, priests have done bad things and blah, 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 blah. Don't even go there with that stuff. Don't even think like an ordinary mortal. It's boring. The reason religions are evaporating is because their time has come to evaporate. It's a matter of evolution. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of the it's necessity. The mythologies and doctrines of religion have not evolved as they should have. And at their core, each one teaches separation. At our core, what we have learned through this moment in consciousness, both biologically and environmentally, what I call our bio-spiritual ecological theology, is that all is one. Religions at their core have become lethal to our health. And I don't say this aggressively, I actually say it technically. Because they teach us to see others negatively, that one core doctrine is actually lethal to our fundamental principles of holism. Which is why this time has come for us to form a bio-spiritual, environmental eco-theology that is based on the laws of nature, that's based on cosmic laws, that is based on an understanding of how the mystical laws that govern our soul are identical with the laws of nature and science. And this era that we live in, this phenomenal era, has pooled those Finally, those two systems of law have met. The internet is identical to our internet. We are one and the same. The way you send an email is the way you send an energy mail, is the speed at which prayer works for each of us. If you can imagine praying for someone and sending it just like an energy mail, it just zooms through a satellite, a divine satellite system, if you want to use that image, because it's the same. And that the difference is you're sending grace instead of energy mail. And that the cosmos is indeed operated by a divine system, but it's not an off-planet God that looks like us. And those days of animating God to look like a human being have come to an end at the time when we are standing on the precipice of entering a galactic era in which we will discover other societies, other civilizations living in other galaxies and other planets, and they don't look like us, and we cannot afford to believe that the only God in this universe is one that is earth-centric, that looks like us. That era of being this planetary sovereign planet has come to an end, and these religions that have had as their myths, it is not unlike how the cavemen evolved into this religion, evolved into the Greek religions, where in trying to figure out how the cosmic powers worked, they had the powers of nature. And then eventually they animated them as human beings were feeling more confident about being human beings. And they started to attribute duplicate, like Zeus and Hermes and Mars, and they began to have this distribution of forces. I think there's a war god that looks like our war god. There was this and that. Plato knew that the gods were archetypes. He said, this is just symbolic. And he used the word archetypes. But eventually, they then drew this idea of a character named Hercules, who was half god and half man. But he was still not physical. But then a real half God, half man evolves called Jesus. And he hit the earth. So then these powers actually incarnated. But he was the last half God, half man. And then this mythology develops that somehow the half God, half man confusion of, well, does that mean, well, what do we do with body and soul? Can we touch our body and still be okay? Do we divide our body and do we divide our soul? And we'll send our soul to a convent and we'll leave our body in the world. And we never got it right. We never got the story right in Christianity. We never did it right. We kind of got some of the things right, but we never could figure it out sexually. We never could figure it out physically. We never kind of figured the story just quite right. It just kind of always went askew, like it did in other religions. We just always, the human factor, never quite got the mystical factor right. But there were always the mystics who slid out of the main story and found their way in the corner and said, what's the real thing here? And they managed to get away from that and said, what are the real power controls here? And they managed, like in the West, they managed like the Kabbalists and the mystics like Francis of Assisi and Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, the wondrous Padre Pio in this last century, these wondrous, incredible mystics that managed to shake off the gum of that heavy doctrine and say, well, how does this, out of their bodies they went. And they experienced this cosmic light, and you know what they all have in common? Is not one of them came back and spoke religion. They all said, whoo, wow. And what did they talk about? The laws. Teresa said, I'm going to write about the 7 mansions. That is power. Ignatius Loyola said, let me start spiritual direction. Let me tell you how to get in. They all talked about getting in. And they weren't talking about the church. The Kabbalah, let me talk to you about this mystery. And you know who inspired him? The Kabbalist was Pythagoras, who said, let me talk to you about the true power of numbers. Not 1 and 2, but what is the power? Pythagoras talked about the numbers of, and who is Pythagoras? The story of Pythagoras is so magnificent. These are the stories of the soul. This is what's in your soul, is the capacity to get past our need to reason. This is the same journey that if you came to me and said, Carolyn, I'm sick, this is the same journey you have to take to bypass the way your illness reasons. Because you've been reasoning with your illness. What do I need to trick you? Do you need herbs? Do you need a massage? Do you need more therapy? Your illness will always trick you because you approach it through the mind. Your mind cannot be trusted with an illness. It'll tell you it's so full of self-pity. It needs more of this. It'll pull out more wounds. I got more wounds for you. Wait a minute, I'll be right back. A whole nother bag. It'll tell you, you can't, you poor weak thing. More wounded, you still can't let go. You still can't forgive. I got more wounds for you. You still can't get on with your life. You need the power of your soul. You need to be relentless and get into this power of yourself that says, this is one lifetime. This was an experience, not a wound, an experience. You will never defeat me. Nothing will defeat me. Absolutely nothing. How have I been talking to myself? Get out of my way. Get out. That's just a voice. Get out of my way. Why have I indulged this voice? That's enough. Do I want to get strong or don't I? Now, what is spiritual direction? Spiritual direction is not therapy. You want therapy? Go to therapy. Spiritual direction is about discovering the power of your spirit. And we begin by a journey to your inner self. And it's just a journey to your inner quiet. What I have discovered is that most people can tell me with absolute conviction what they do not believe in. And not a lot of conviction with what they do believe in. I know exactly what I don't believe in. And and usually with a chip on their shoulder. I'm not interested in what you don't believe in. I could care less. It's always the same story. I have no interest in what you don't believe in. Zero. It's always the same old, same old. What you should be interested is in why you don't believe in anything, and aren't you a little too old to be walking this earth faithless? It would terrify me. I wouldn't even leave the house. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. If I did not know what I believed in, and if I was not so sure that what stands next to me is an angel, not the silly little angel of hope, angel of parking, a little angel on a card. I'm talking a genuine, bona fide mega. But if I didn't know that when I bend my head in prayer and say, God, help me, hover over me. I need some grace and I need it now. I don't look around and say, where's that grace? I just keep going. Now, I don't have any problems. I don't go through this, and I hate the Catholic Church. I'm very grateful I grew up in that church. I don't have any scar tissue, and I don't have any issues with the issues. They're not my issues. I love the mystical tradition. It formed this. It gave me, I witnessed miracles. I saw nuns heal from brain tumors. I prayed with them. I said, this is good stuff. This is damn good stuff. I'll take this. And I saw it beyond them. It's powerful goods. This will go anywhere. This works. And it's not just there, it's law. It's law. And I've got news for you. Every one of us is born with this little burning desire to two things: to experience awe. We want to be struck with awe. Do it. Blind me with awe. And number two, it's not that you want to be, oh, please, I know I was born for something special. Stop that crap. What you really want is to know that you are somehow significant to something greater than yourself. That you were not born without being, that you're known to something holy. That you are holy, whatever that means. That you are not meaningless. That your life is not meaningless. Never mind this idea, I need to do something special. Why? Because you want someone to spot you when you walk down the street? By evening, that buzz is gone. How many of those buzzes do you want? Pretty soon you're going to be old and not recognized, and then what? The only other buzz is stick your finger in a socket. Stop it with the ego needs. Stop it. What you need is that holiness inside. It says, no matter what I look like, no matter who I am, I know, you know. I know. That's what you want. And don't kid yourself. That goes everywhere. And you don't need anyone to endorse that. Okay, the light was, it's a break time. Okay.